Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Amanda Rivera. I'm the hearing examiner presiding over today's case. The date is March 6th, 2025, and this is case DCI 2024-00020. It's a rezoning request along Bayshore Road for a CPD. Because this is a quasi-judicial hearing, all evidence and testimony must be taken under oath. So if you intend to speak, if you could please raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will provide is the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Do we have members of the public here today? No? Okay, then I will dispense with those instructions. Does the staff have an affidavit of publication?
I do. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Let's see here. Okay, thank you. So this will be Staff Exhibit 2. Staff Exhibit 1 was pre-labeled with the staff report. So with that, we're ready to begin whenever the applicant's ready.
You want my exhibits, ma'am?
Yes, please. Thank you. If you could identify it for the record, is this just your PowerPoint?
Yes, this is
Okay.
my PowerPoint.
Okay, thank you. And I did receive your 48-hour letter, so that was also pre-labeled as applicant Exhibit A. And then this will be applicant Exhibit 1. Good morning, whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Madam Hearing Examiner. For the record, my name is Steve Darby with Darby Engineering. I've been here in Lee County since 1995. Been doing engineering all over the state of Florida. I'm a professional engineer and planner here, and I've been accepted as an expert witness in previous rezoning cases over the years for the land planning and land development code, and would like to know if I could proceed.
Thank you. Yes, do we have your resume on file?
It should be, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
We'll start off with this location map. The project is located here on, get my bearings right. This is I-75 running here, Bayshore running along this way. We're in between right here Nally Road. We're right that portion of it. The zoning all the way around it is all CPD. And next. As you can see, there's no development is taking place. The subject parcel that we've got here is 1.08 acres and is currently zoned AG2. And our request today is to rezone the property to CPD for a limited commercial use of the property. The subject property has 2 future land use. And I'll show that here and we'll come to it again. But you'll see that the purple portion of it is in general interchange. That portion of it is 11.69%. The rest remaining of the parcel is sub-outlying suburban, and that's the remaining 88.32%. But as you can see from the aerial, the parcel, and I want to make this clear this up at the beginning, the parcel is set back from the right-of-way here. The reason FDOT has taken most of the property along here, it hasn't taken anything on this west property, and it hasn't taken anything on this grocery store that's there presently. And I'll talk more about the FDOT stuff, but the FDOT is under the consideration of taking, they have a north plan and they have a south plan. They have not decided yet, and that's not funded. So but that's the idea. But you can see most of the residential portions of it are up here to the north. This whole section here is been rezoned except for the site we're talking about today. The Bayshore community is specific on where retail development is. They're very specific on where they want the retail and where they don't want the retail. Their consideration out there for the community is to keep it rural, and that's what they want. It's going to be very difficult with the increasing of what they're doing here in Bayshore, and the lovely Badcock Ranch out there is changing this whole area. What we're proposing here is a flex space. If you're not familiar with that with the county, the flex space is a office, small office, typically about 300 square foot to put a couple people in, and the remaining portion of it is for storage. It's indoor storage. These sites here would help the whole environment around it for people. It could be a vast amount of things like roofers or plumbers, or it's more for contractors. The contractors have always been having problems. They're so far away to get out to this area. They can't give service to if anybody has plumbing or they have some problems. They're waiting days because they can't get people out this far. So that was the reason that the client is kind of looking and putting in that type of a development in this area.
So it's a 10,000 square foot building though, so is it single occupancy or would there be in the?
Two is the way we've got it set up right now.
Okay,
Two, we want to make it into two 5,000.
two 5,000, there's two.
But it's a total of one 10,000.
Okay, so there's a single building, but,
It's a single building with two, it'll have two accesses to it, two offices, two warehouse.
okay, but primarily indoor storage, you're not anticipating?
We don't have the room, to be honest with you. Right now, it's all going to be indoor storage. I mean, we're praying that we can get the actual 10,000 square foot when we get into the DO, which we feel we can. It's just a matter of fact, it's, the 35-foot height that we've asked for is because a lot of times we're asking for, we might be building this at 25, 28 feet high, because a lot of people, when they store, they like to store up high from that portion of it. The specific uses of flex space is something that is not in the, around the area. It's something that is you'll see more of this as time comes on from a commercial standpoint. It's a very, very popular use everywhere else in the county. Since there's only a small portion of the parcel that's general interchange, there's not really anything, as you can see here. Whoop, my fault. Pushing buttons. I don't know whether that was a mapping error, or I don't know why, but it's kind of an odd situation to have an interchange on such a small parcel. But we still did an analysis based on, 1.32 for general interchange, and we also did the sub-outlying suburban. We've gone through the policy of 1.11 and everything in the code in order to make sure that we still explain what we're doing. We really can't build anything in that it's less than 20 feet strip. That's actually kind of the buffer on that one side. Mostly the policy of 1.11, 1.1.1 is sub-outlying suburban, which is identified with mostly residential and small commercial development. Low intensity expected to occur along Bayshore Road. The area around Bayshore Road and Bayshore Community has changed a great deal with approvals of residential units. There's been a lot of residential units and development out in this area. That's been some very large properties within, like I said earlier, Badcock Ranch on State Road 31, Owl Creek, Bayshore Ranch, and Stonehill Manor, just to name a few. The intent of the commercial parcel to provide much-needed services to the great number of rooftops that is there and is going to be built in the future. All the existing and future projects on Bayshore area are connected all to Bayshore. Bayshore is a very critical aspect of this whole community. And I think that the county and FDOT fully understands that. That's why they're doing so much work to improve that section of it. Actually, I'm going to stay back here. We have several different types of zoning categories around the project. East and west, and to the north are all CPDs. The latest one that has been approved is the village right here to the west. There is one parcel right down here before you get to Nally Road. There's one parcel right here that's CG. I don't know, it's been a hub pretty much for this whole entire area because it has a gas station there and it has groceries and everything else. Everybody rides their horse down there to get whatever they need to get from that portion of it. But FDOT, if they take the north section, that will be completely taken away. But that one is actually zoned CG.
And the zoning for this one, your narrative said that there was originally a convention rezone application that was filed and withdrawn?
The applicant originally submitted a conventional rezoning, and I think they got in a little over their head on the first comments, so they kind of called me and said, can you help me out to go for it? So we switched it over to a CPD.
Was it compatibility? Because there's no deviations requested, so typically you see the switch go from conventional to a PD.
CDP, no. The conventional, we just decided, the problem we were having with the conventional was the general interchange. We were just having problems meeting the criteria and additional uses and everything that we would have to, that we would want that was inside the standard. So that's why we kind of said we would reduce it. We'll go through, because we knew there were some environmental issues as far as the well points and stuff like that. So we wanted to go ahead and reduce the uses. It was our point to help out, to be honest with you. The developments around it, as they haven't been built, so it's really first come, first serve. All the new parcels and everything will have to meet the new land development code and all the features specific to the development, such as they'll all have to have buffers, which all the facilities that are out there now don't have buffers. They were done so far along. They'll have to have lighting and their access to to Bayshore, which is an FDOT road. Looking at the comprehensive plan, policy 5, objective 5.1 and 5.1.1 and 6.1.4, these are policies that look into protecting the existing and abutting residential. As you can see, the nearest residential that we have is up in this area, in this portion, and back over in this portion. There's a little bit on the other side of Nally Road, but there's nothing. I went back up in here, and there is some residential, but it's been there for quite some time. But all the surroundings from our site right now, all the surrounding parcels are commercially zoned. Now I'm in here. Bayshore has been going on for some time. It's with FDOT in the review. What I'm showing you here at the top is the section that FDOT has got now. It's a 2-lane road, open drainage. That's what they're going to have until they make the modifications to it. What you see down below is the section, the urban section that they're going to actually propose. This urban section will have the sidewalks, the curb, and very little bit of green space on either side, but you'll now have the green median in the middle. This has not been funded. This is in PD&E, which is Planning, Development, and Environmental Study. They are looking at a north side and a south side, meaning they were going to take this and shift it either to the north or shift it to the south. We don't know how the FDOT is going to come out with that, but right now it looks like they've been looking at it for quite some time, shifting it to the north with all the, as I stated earlier, taking some of the right-of-way already on those north parcels. The TIS that we provided is it generates 17 weekday peak trips in the AM and 19 weekday PM trips in the evening. What that means is that's the total at the intersection. The intersection, based on my conversations with FDOT, is not all those parcels are going to be allowed, obviously, you know that, to have an access. They're proposing, and I'll come back here, they're proposing to have their access right here for all this development. So it'll be right in here. And that's where on the master concept plan you showed, that they showed on the village, where they were putting an access there too. Then that access will come up and that will go all the way across and tie in down here to Natalie Road as far as whether DOT is going to allow them to connect over here. They've already talked to this parcel to the north up here, and they're allowed to connect right at this point. So I doubt very seriously FDOT is going to allow them connect to that existing dirt road that's there now.
So the existing access driveway paved that's shown on the master concept plan, that's the connection that's contemplated to Bayshore?
That one is an option. FDOT is not hasn't said no, but they haven't said yes. They don't say no or yes until you actually do an applicant.
Okay.
But they're telling me the one that we go to if you go to the other side of the master concept plan,
To the west.
yeah, to the west, that's where they're looking at. So whoever comes in first, and that hopefully maybe they'll come in first and make that determination, but whoever comes in first makes that determination.
So what is that? That was one of my questions I had. So on the master concept plan, you've got the cross-access easements going in either direction to connect.
For right now, yes.
But on the west, you've got the 20-foot wide paved private access, and then the east, you had option 2. I don't know what option 2 is.
Option 2 is if I have a difficulty, and I'm going to have, if I can't get this parcel, it's not guaranteed. If I can't get this parcel to give me an easement in order for us to give access, I've got to go some other way.
And I did, because the Bayshore Village master concept plan was in the material. So that shows a connection to this parcel, and then it's basically got 3 different scenarios. And so what is the status of that? Because they do have to provide that interconnection, but it didn't say if there was an easement that was required.
Well, you're required by code, by the land development code, to have an easement. It's similar that I put on my plan. There's an easement across my property and all the other property. So when they go in for development order, that's an easement that they're going to be required to give.
But what they've got, so they've either got to do, if zoned and developed commercial, your parcel, it's unique because they don't typically have this level of detail in the master concept plan, so this must have been something that was discussed at.
It was discussed in detail with FDOT.
Well, with the zoning, I'm saying, for them.
Oh, yeah, it was.
So they've got, if it's zoned commercial but not developed, they've got to provide the interconnection. If it's not zoned commercial, they had to provide a 24-foot cross-access easement. So I don't know where they're at, if they've provided any of those things, what the timing is.
They haven't yet because they're not required to. They will when they go in for their development order.
Right, that's what I'm asking. So
Yes.
they haven't gone in for DO yet.
They haven't gone in for DO. That's why right now my option is open, east or west, because if I can't get if they don't accept it, if they haven't gone for their DO in before we do, and if they don't accept to give us an easement, we can't go through their land.
And I didn't check, do you know at the time, did they provide a condition that required the cross-access?
I'd have to go back and look at.
There isn't one in this. That was one of my questions. This zoning also did not have a requirement to do a cross-access easement like you're talking about. The code requires it, so they don't.
But the code requires it.
Correct, but they usually also include it as a condition, just so everyone's aware that that's happening. So that was going to be one of my comments, is that that should be provided, especially since you're showing it on the master concept plan.
I'm showing it there because those are the only two accesses. I don't see, the reason the one that goes to the east is not feasible is DOT doesn't have the spacing. I mean, that's just, where you have a light and you have Nelly Road, that intersection is, is just not there. I mean, you're only talking about, they've got access right here, right there now for this one, and they can't stand that. They have a lot of problems from people slamming on the brakes and everything else turning there.
And where is that going to right now? It looks to be vacant on the area.
This one right here, it goes up to a flag light, and this whole parcel here, and that's a flag light that comes down here.
What are they using it for, though? It just looks.
It's vacant right now. They've got a CPD also.
Right, okay, but you were saying that they don't like them using it that close together. Is anyone actually using it yet?
No.
Okay.
No,
You're just
no,
saying
the
DOT.
largest problem they got right here is this one right here. If they were to go in and develop this first, FDOT has the problem with that access being so close to.
Right, the separation requirements aren't going to be met, correct?
And really and truly, we just meet it up in this area, based on what you see on the master concept plan for the adjacent parcel,
For the western parcel, you're
for the
saying?
western parcel. So what I'm seeing right now, and I can't see that they're going to have any problem. It's already in their master concept plan to put you in here. But since if we come in first, as you're reading that, it's not developed yet. So they're, based on the way I read it, is that they're going to have to require and provide us an easement when we go in. We come in first for the DO than they do.
Well, what's interesting, again, it's about timing. So because you're in this unique situation that you're encumbered on both sides with the CPDs, but they're different CPDs, I mean, I'm sure you're aware, it's a very unique configuration.
It is.
So I'm sure that's why they put this here, is that it was anticipated this property would not stay agriculturally zoned, and that's why they have the anticipation that if it was going to be commercial, they had to provide that easement. But the timing issue, right now, they don't have to provide it because you're not commercial yet, until you go through this process. And the-
Until, yes, they don't, right now, that's an actually, only access this would have is straight down, and FDOT's not going to allow it.
Correct.
But you're right, this has no access except for right here, and, the right-of-way actually is right here now. So they have access to the right-of-way, but FDOT's not going to allow it.
Correct. That's
So the only way that, this would probably have to go through a court system for them to say no, them to say no, them to say no, because they haven't developed it, so the actual easements haven't been recorded because they haven't developed it. But as soon as this is, I feel that we can get the development order a lot quicker than they have. Hopefully, if that happens, then based on their rezoning, they've required. And it's an odd language that after they develop, they don't have to. That was kind of an odd situation, and I don't think that was challenged at that portion. But right now, I'm feeling that we should come in first is what we're proposing, and then when we do that, we'll actually they'll have to give us the easement. But that's why you see it there, it's kind of undetermined, left or right, we're not really sure, we know that they have to provide easements, but they don't have to legally until the DO.
Well, and potentially you would have both, I would assume. I mean, if they're both commercially zoned, there needs to be the interconnections to both sides.
Well, we would love to have it go this way and this way, but FDOT is only going to allow this.
Correct, but.
So these parcels here, when they go to develop, they're not going to have a choice. These parcels here, when they go to DO, they're going to have to come through with this parcel and use this access.
Which means you're going to have to grant the easement, so that was one of my.
As part of the DO, I have to.
Right.
I have to provide that easement as part of the DO. That's part of the DO.
Yes, we usually include it in zoning as well, is what I'm saying, just as a condition.
Oh, I didn't know
right now.
that. I didn't know that you did it part of the
It
zoning.
is, just so everyone's aware. as
Thank
they
you.
come in.
I didn't know that. I knew it was part of the DO. So yeah, we are proposing it. That's what's on the master concept, to propose that. So these parcels here, I know this parcel here and this parcel here doesn't show anything, but the master concept plan here addressed an easement on that one. But everything changes. Once they widen this to the urban section, it all changes. Right now, we're proposing to come into this area. If we come in first, FDOT will let us go in with the right in, right out only. They won't give us a full intersection. But that right in, right out is based on our traffic study. If I add any one of the other parcels, it's going to require a turn lane. Because FDOT came out in end of 2023, and they changed their code to anything over 15 turning moments. Right in turn moments would actually cause a turn lane, which has got everybody in uproar. Everybody's putting in all these turn lanes. So right now, that's going to be touch and go. Since this one isn't in yet and we're coming in first, hopefully we'll just be able to come in with it without a turn lane. But it will eventually have a turn lane in that parcel of it. The section from here to the east of this road is all working based on the TIS, and all the background traffic is at level of service C. So the county allows us to go to level of service C, so there is a lot of capacity on the road right now. A lot of people, when they say, well, there's no capacity on Bayshore, because they're up here. That's at level of service E, up here next to the interstate. I think I pretty much have gone over pretty much here that the funding, I'll just give you a little bit more information for your knowledge. The funding for this has not been funded. The PD&E has not been determined whether it's a north-south section, but they are looking at finishing it off from the conversations I've had with them at the end of this year. So the PD&E at the end of this year, they're planning on going through, if they get that approval by the end of the year, they're planning on doing this as a design build, meaning that they will design and build at the same time. So they would like to have this section that we have here in by the end of 2028 is what they're anticipating. Whether that happens, you know how FDOT is. They're never really on time, but that's what their anticipations are. Let me go to the next. The site does have portable water. It's from Lee County Utilities. It's not shown on this, but here is the site right here. There is a water main, a large 18-inch water main that runs along this side that we can connect to with plenty of capacity. I provided that letter from the Lee County Utilities. You see right now, the red line that you see here, it's kind of odd. They come down, they go around the site because they couldn't go through it, but that is actually a force main on there. That's a 16-inch force main, and that is from FGUA, or Florida Governmental Authority Agency. They, both of them has accepted, and we'll have to have a lift station to tie into the sanitary, and there'll have to be more of a directional bore under FDOT in order to connect to the water main on the other side to Lee County. It should be noted that the land development code criteria will be providing on the site plan loading areas, the trash collection. There won't be any outdoor storage because we just don't have the room, to be honest with you. But we're allowed outdoor storage, but there's nothing really there to put outside storage. The heating, the air conditioning equipment, they'll all be fully shielded from our landscaping or some kind of a fencing or something like that to shield it from the right-of-way or any other properties from the ground view. The shielding material will be those areas must be consistent with the design, treatment, and primary facade, for the commercial development. Regarding lighting, it will exceed 0.5 candle foot at the property line or 0.2 candle light 10 feet out from the property line for the land development code. Fixtures will be used with, architectural use to kind of help out the community there as far as providing a nice architectural view. And they must be shielded from the upper skies and from any other properties also. The subject site, like I said before, is all existing CPD. This is kind of a unique situation with us being surrounded with an AD, right? So it's kind of, I hate to say it, it's not an easy one, but it's actually should be, because it's actually got the CPD around it, and there shouldn't be any problems with us going through the process of having the commercial. But as far as from the zoning and the commercial, we'll be required to provide a 5-foot buffer on all 3 sides, and then then we'll have to provide a type D buffer along the right-of-way, which is a 25 feet, or 15 feet, excuse me, 15-foot wide buffer. And they'll provide with all the rows and double trees and everything required by the code. Go this way. Yeah, here's another one for the sewer. You can see where the sewer is kind of running all over the place. They did the best they could. This is the land the the concept plan. As you can see, we've got, push the wrong one again. I should have training on this. You can see that we have the buffer along this side, the buffer along the back. We have stormwater along this side. There is an option since we're this whole land discharges to FDOT, if there's additional needed, we can always put underground, under the pavement, storage to be able to satisfy them. And the client may decide, I haven't talked to them about that, but they might decide to put it under now if they need to have additional room, as long as they meet their 2% open space. But you're right, I showed this specifically this way in order for, there's an existing one here. FDOT, this parcel up here thinks that they're grandfathered. FDOT doesn't grandfather anything. If you don't have development there, you don't come in. But they think, that's the way they think, that, and because FDOT knows they have access up here, and that's where they're going to require them to put their access if they come in and develop first.
It's a gas station you said for the one at the intersection.
That's right here.
That's just north of that?
Just north, that's a vacant parcel.
Looks like
Well, it's a house, I guess, I'm sorry.
it's zone CG, I'm just curious.
I don't know what that is, honestly. I don't know. I don't know what that is.
I think it's a car wash.
It's a car wash, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know, I forgot now. I knew the parcel north of that, I thought that was a complete one parcel. But I know the ones to the north of it, they will have to have access here. You can see how the parcel's broken off. They own both of these parcels and this parcel. But this is a car wash, and that's the grocery store. Okay. From the environmental side, this is a map taken from the FDOT's PD&E study. They've gone through and they figured out all the wetlands and floodplains based in the area. Our parcel is sitting right down in here. And you can see that you've got a creek that runs this way, and you also have a creek that runs this way. The way the road's set up, the discharge from this area doesn't go this way. It actually goes to the west and then travels down into FDOT's right-of-way. Then it goes into the Caloosahatchee River. As far as wetlands, there's no wetlands on the site. The floodplain, it extends up right behind all the commercial here. The elevation of that, it's an AE10. So the elevation of the finished floor will be, based on the Florida Building Code, with 1-foot freeboard, will be 11 feet. From the environmental provided in our submittal, there's no habitats that will have to impact on our property. No activity of any gopher tortoises or burrows were found. There's no eagle nest within 660 feet of the parcel. The parcel is not near any red woodpeckers, sightings, or Florida panthers from the telemetry points they've got around the area. No heritage trees, the mangroves, obviously, because there's no wetlands, and the plants that are on the site are all pretty much native. There's no invasive species from the environment, as the environmental stored it. And as I stated, our elevation from our floodplain will be raising it approximately 3 feet. The existing ground out there is about 8 to 9 feet in that portion of it. This map is the Lee County's well protection zones. It's depicting the times, the travel times. As you can see here in the, oh, I pushed the wrong one. The purple here is a 1 year. The well is actually further way down this way. Fire? Nice.
This is fun.
I think they're testing.
They did this yesterday. They're doing all the work in the building.
Oh,
so
okay.
Wait and see.
Well, I'm about finished. Can I?
Get it in before the fire.
Get it before the fire. Oh, yeah. So the well protected heads down this way. The red here that you see, that's the the green, I'm sorry. The green is the 5-year, the red is the 10-year. We've actually reduced our schedule of uses in order for not even to touch this. We're going through the process, and we have storage inside. We have nothing that's going to be like a gas station or anything that's going to have a contamination leak. So that's based on what your environmental and your hydrologist has said. They did a very good job of explaining that, I guess, in their Exhibit L, which I'm sure Mary Sue will show up there. But if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer anything on that. But right now, we're outside. We're in the 5-year, but we're not really have anything potential that's going to be causing any problems there. And the only other thing you got in my 48-hour letter is that I'm just going to mention it, that we would like to take the environmental either completely out as far as the conditions, because we just want to meet the code at 2%, or 20%, excuse me. And besides that, if there's any other questions?
Thank you. No, I asked as I went through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Hearing Examiner. Mary Sue Gross, Senior Planner with the Zoning Section for Lee County. I have my presentation for you as an exhibit. If I can approach.
Thank you. So that will be Staff Exhibit 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. That was a great presentation of your project. I'm going to cover a lot of the Lee Plan criteria and touch on a lot of the project. I have been previously qualified as an expert witness in land use planning and the Lee County Land Development Code and a comprehensive plan, and would like to ask to do so again today.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I'll start with the applicant's request and staff's recommendation. Darby Engineering Incorporated, on behalf of KevJo Properties LLC, has filed an application to rezone approximately 1.08 acres from Ag 2 to CPD. For a maximum of 10,000 square foot of commercial uses. Staff does recommend approval. We did have a condition in there that we did remove based on the open space requirements. Some background on the property, just quickly, as Steve covered it ad nauseum, so that was great. The subject property is located at 9461 Bayshore Road. It does have one strap number and is part of the Bayshore Community Plan area. It's, as we know, has 2 future land use categories of general interchange and sub-outlying suburban, and is currently zoned agricultural 2. Some character of the area, the property is located just east of Interstate 75, west of Knoll Road, and falls within the 5-year wellfield protection travel time zone. It's approximately 200 feet north of a Lee County public water supply well, as Steve covered for us. The surrounding uses, the property to the north of the subject property at 9481 Bayshore Road is zone CPD and currently undeveloped. This T-shaped property that Steve had pointed out before, it encompasses the north portion of the property to the east of the subject property, and beyond the CPD to the north are Ag 2 zone districts containing single-family residences along Knoll Road. These properties all lie within the sub-outlying future land use category and the general interchange future land use as well. The lands to the south of the subject property across Bayshore Road are C1A and also reside within the sub-outlying suburban future land use category. Land directly east of the subject property is located in the sub-outlying suburban and general interchange future land use category and is zoned CPD for a small mixed-use commercial center, and it is also undeveloped. Property to the west is located in the general interchange future land use and is zoned CPD. It was recently approved for 100,000 square feet of commercial development intensity, up to 125 hotel units, and a variety of commercial uses. Covering the lead plan, LDC section 34-145, the following slides will provide how the applicant has met the listed criteria for the hearing examiner to approve the request. The parcel is in the sub-outlying suburban and general interchange future land use category, as we've established already. They are described in policies 1.1.11 and 1.3.2 of the lead plan. The property lies along Bayshore Road, a state-maintained roadway. To the southeast and west of the subject property are existing CPDs, making the request compatible with surrounding development. And the minimal uses requested within the schedule of uses limit commercial activity in a manner that is not destructive to the character of the Bayshore rural and agricultural environments. The western portion of the property residing in the general interchange future land use category, the request includes lighter commercial uses allowable in many of the conventionally commercial zoned districts, and are also compatible with the uses permitted in the existing adjacent CPDs. Objective 2.1 of the lead plan promotes contiguous and compact growth to contain urban sprawl. The proposed CPD will allow for infill development that promotes compact growth patterns. Objective 2.2 and policy 2.2.1 discuss new growth in the future urban areas where adequate public facilities exist. The property is located along that two-lane state-maintained arterial road of Bayshore, and existing infrastructure of water and sewer is in place, and adequate facilities including fire, police, EMS, solid waste, public transit, public schools, and parks do serve the property. The applicant has provided the required letter of availability from LCU, stating that lines are in operation adjacent to the property. They presently does have capacity to provide potable water for the estimated service flow demand of the project, but no reuse mains are in the vicinity. Applicant also provided the letter of availability from the FGUA confirming the sanitary sewer lines are in operation adjacent to the subject property, and sufficient capacity also exists for that. Those fulfill those standards for 4.1.1 and 4.1.2. The applicant did state they would be connecting to those public and water utilities as well. The applicant provided the required protected species survey, and the associated environmental maps. Environmental staff completed historical research of the property pertaining to vegetation and clearing, and completed a site inspection to confirm species and plant communities. Staff did note some discrepancies in the provided environmental reports that are covered in the environmental staff report, and they just include flux designations, previous development and clearing activity, and the possibility of some present wetland communities on the property. Per the LDC standards, they have recommended obtaining the jurisdictional wetland delineation. The applicants provided MCP accounted for those surrounding uses consistent with policy 5.1.5. which seeks to protect existing residential areas from any uses that are potentially destructive to the character and integrity of the residential environment. The LDC has further requirements pertaining to buffers, setbacks, and screening, and architecture to minimize those negative impacts to the surrounding residential neighborhoods. As we know, the property does not directly abut any residents, but the development design has provided sufficient buffering requirements for the other surrounding uses. Goal 6 of the LEED plan, this seeks to permit orderly and well-planned commercial developments in appropriate locations. The property is in the Bayshore community, and the development is an infill project within other nearby existing CPDs. Access to the proposed development will be facilitated through an interconnection driveway shared with both CPD districts to the east of the subject property. Steve covered this fairly well with his presentation, so I won't belabor that. Goal 18 for the Bayshore Planning Community, the objective of Goal 18 as established through LEED plan is to protect that existing rural, residential, agricultural, and equestrian-oriented character of the community. The eastern portion of the subject property, located within the general interchange future land use category at Bayshore and Interstate 75 near Knoll Road, where minor commercial uses are encouraged. Properties to the west, approximately 1 mile beyond Interstate 75, are designated also as general interchange. The remainder of the subject property is designated sub-outlying suburban, as are properties along the north side of Bayshore Road, approximately 1/4 mile and over 1.5 miles to the north, where the future land use then changes to rural. Sub-outlying suburban future land use is an area anticipated for urban development pursuant to LEED Plan Map 1A. This map depicted here was actually used in the case to the west for the Bayshore Village community, provided by our planning department here that Adam Mendez covered in his case for that project. The provision of additional commercial intensity and uses in this area of the Bayshore community, which already has sites approved for commercial development, will help to protect the existing rural and agricultural character by expanding commercial development where it already exists and is permitted by future land use and approved CPDs. Site's location is also the least restrictive for retail commercial land use, which are not being proposed within this community, meeting the increasing demand as the community continues to grow. Goals 60, 61, 63, and policy 125.12 and 125.16 all deal with water quality and protection. The applicant provided surface water management plan and stated existing conditions to the property are flatlands with minimum runoff during storm events. Runoff from the site will sheet flow to proposed dry detention and discharge to a control structure to the FDOT right-of-way. The FDOT right-of-way has conveyance ditches that flow collected runoff into their collection systems. And then further, the estimated seasonal high water table will be established and remain unchanged with dry detention areas meeting the South Florida Water Management District's criteria for 1 foot separation above the dry detention area. Natural Resources staff did determine one of the proposed uses originally requested, the laundry or dry cleaning groups 1 and 2, did have the potential to adversely impact the nearby public water supply well. The property does fall within the 5-year well field protection zone travel time, which represents the amount of time it takes a potential pollutant to reach the well field. And the applicant removed the laundry and dry cleaning from the schedule of uses. All the remaining uses are compatible with that well field protection travel time zone. For meeting the code and other applicable county regulations. The applicant has acknowledged that at the time of development, the LDC and other applicable county regulations will be required. And there is not 3 deviations with this request. That slide is incorrect. There are no deviations being requested with this. Sorry about that. For compatibility with existing planned uses, as we've already covered, the property is located within the general interchange and sub-outlying suburban future land use and other nearby existing CPDs, and the applicant's schedule of uses is limited. Again, for providing access sufficient to support the proposed development, we've covered that extensively. We've got the interconnection driveways shared with both the CPD district to the east and one access point on the state-maintained arterial road of Bayshore, and then the private cross-access to the property to the west. The applicant provided the required TIS. Lee County DOT provided a transportation-related analysis stating that the project generates 17 weekday AM peak hour trips and 19 weekday PM trips, and indicated since the proposed use generates less than 100 trips per hour, the roadways and intersections level of service analysis are not required according to Administrative Code AC-13-17. Also, as previously mentioned, Lee County DOT stated that the proposed access to Bayshore Road is subject to approval of FDOT since it is a state-maintained roadway. The applicant provided a surface water management plan, as we've already discussed, discussing the existing conditions as flatlands with minimum runoff during storm events that eventually flow into the FDOT collection system. And of course, further, the estimated seasonal high water table will be established and remain unchanged. The applicant also provided the required protected species survey and affiliated environmental maps. Environmental staff did complete a site inspection on January 24th of 2025, and after completing their research, they noted those discrepancies that we talked about earlier within the report to existing site conditions. There is insufficient evidence that the land was all previously cleared, as the survey had stated, as large oaks and large pines remained on the site, which indicated the property was no longer receiving the fire at the natural intervals to maintain a healthy vegetation community. In addition, Flux 436 for upland, scrub, pine, and hardwoods was provided on the applicant's environmental report, but there were none observed on the site during the staff site inspection. More appropriately identified codes would have included Flux 411 for pine flatwoods in the north and western portion of the property, and Flux 427 for live oaks to the south and eastern portion of the property. Within the Flux 427 area, staff did identify those potential for wetland habitats that were contrary to the environmental report. So again, did recommend that prior to development order, that jurisdictional wetland delineation be done.
Was that a condition that was being proposed? Because there was the other condition about open space that was incorporated.
It is part of the land development code that they're going to have to do that JD. So we did not provide that condition. We have provided that condition in the past that's been removed as it's redundant to land development code. So
The open spaces too. That's why it gets confusing, because
Yeah.
it's like, how do we
Right.
pick and choose? Same with the interconnection.
Right.
So-
With the open space condition that we added, it was because the open space went beyond the 20% requirement. And if the way that we look at it is if they say they're going to provide more, then we expect them to provide more at the time of development. So if it came in and it was under I think it was 21.53 or something, then development services would end up kicking it back to us and saying, hey, this is different than what the resolution says. So
They said that they don't want that condition.
Right, that's correct.
So where Where is staff with that? Do
So we're in agreement, since that master concept plan that he provided with the 48-hour letter just shows that 20%, we'll remove the condition on that.
And
So
you don't want a jurisdictional determination condition either? You don't believe that that's warranted?
I don't believe it's necessary since it's in there. Further, environmental staff also provided the following information concerning open space. As we've already discussed, it's considered a small development because it's less than 10 acres in size, and pursuant to 10-415A, required to demonstrate 20% open space. They gave more. Now they're just going to provide the minimum on that master concept plan, so we did remove that condition and use that updated MCP that the applicant provided. Indigenous open space preservation, the LDC does require that large projects provide 50% of the open space through on-site preservation of existing native vegetation communities, but there's no indigenous open space required on this. Buffers, it does abut Bayshore Road right-of-way along the south and a CPD along the west and eastern property line and a CPD along the north property line. So the required buffers are going to be type A at north, south, and west, and then type D buffer along the east property line.
Is that consistent with the master concept plan? Because I've got A on the north, west, and east, and D on the south.
Yeah, I think that's what I said, right? North, south, and west are type A.
East is D. This has the south being D because it's
Oh.
the Bayshore.
Because it's Bayshore. Okay, so that should be back. It's wrong on my,
Okay.
on
But you
my
agree with
slide.
what they have.
That's
on the-
correct. That's correct. Yeah, 2 mistakes in my presentation today. All right. So we'll be served by Urban Services. It is serviced, as we know, by LCU and FGUA, the Norfolk Myers Shores Fire Protection and Rescue, the Lee County Sheriff's Office, in addition to public transit, schools, and parks. And the property lies along Bayshore Road, a state-maintained roadway. To the southeast and west of the subject property are existing CPDs, making the request compatible with surrounding development and the limited schedule of uses. And the applicant's provided MCP was designed to be compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods to protect existing residential areas from any uses that are potentially destructive. And there are no conditions now on the project, so we can remove that condition part. And no deviations were requested from Land Development Code. So in conclusion, the requested amendment meets the review criteria established in LDC Section 34-145, and staff does recommend approval.
Let me check my notes. 1 second. I think I asked everything as we went through. Open, or not open, outdoor storage is still a permitted use that's recommended, but they've said that they can't fit that on the site. Is it just being included in an abundance of caution?
Yeah, and an abundance of caution.
But it is consistent if they
It
do
is
choose to do
consistent.
that with
Mhm.
the surrounding
Yes.
community. Okay, I think that was the extent of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there any final comments that the applicant wanted to make before we close?
No.
Okay, there's no rebuttal needed, obviously, since we don't have members of the public today, so we can forego that. So thank you, everyone, for coming. I'll be making a recommendation to the board, and then you will receive a copy of that as well as the date of when they schedule that hearing, and that'll be the final action in this case. Thank you. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you very much.